With an Amazon series on the horizon and a barrage of video games in recent years, Warhammer 40k is getting pretty darn hard to ignore. Maybe you've toyed with the idea of getting into it, but been put off by the sheer volume of stuff related to the IP. I don't blame you. It's a pretty big universe. But I'm here today to tell you that there's never been a better time to take your first steps into this iconic universe. Cast off your preconceptions about Warhammer and rewrite your New Year's resolutions, because 2024 is the year to get into 40k. First question you've got to ask yourself, why should I bother trying to get into 40k? What can it offer me? To put it plainly, 40k has a setting that sets it apart from the rest. It's not a quest of discovery and human betterment like Star Trek, nor a plucky fight in the face of a great looming threat like Star Wars. There's no happy ending or much positivity at all. There's only war. Unrelenting, total war. Conflict is the backdrop, and behind that there's an ocean of grim dark storytelling, enough to make your head spin. It takes a sci-fi setting and merges it with fantasy tropes to create something bizarre and outlandish. There's no point of reference really, nor parts you're supposed to relate or aspire to. But that works in its favour. I'll get back to it later. So how'd you get involved? Well, I won't touch on the actual game, you know, the one with the miniatures and all that. But even circling around the actual Warhammer game itself, there's still a hell of a lot to get stuck into. There's a bunch of offerings that draw from the game's tabletop roots. Squad tactics, war games, real-time and turn-based strategy. There's also a ton of action-oriented stuff. Pretty much something for all tastes. So where to begin? The past few years have given us a lot of really solid entry points into this threatening universe, with some ideal places to start for would-be recruits. Last year there was Bolt Gun, which put you in the role of the iconic Space Marine and tasked you with murdering everything in sight. It plays like a boomer shooter, you know, Doom, Quake and the like. It's fast, frantic, and genuinely really good fun. But there's another reason to look at this as your doorway into the franchise. It immediately breaks down one of the IP's main misconceptions. It's very tongue-in-cheek, over the top and in your face.
You are an abomination to be expunged! Die, heretic!
And it's satirical. You might have thought the franchise takes itself a bit too seriously, but in reality, it's all satire. Bolt Gun puts you in the right frame of mind, and from there are a slew of other releases to really get you absorbed. Dark Tide is a cooperative first-person title that pits you against hordes of horrible threats, and last year it received a massive overhaul which basically reinvented the game, making it better than ever. Chaos Gate Demon Hunters will tick boxes for tactics fans, as you command a squad of elite marine troops against the Chaos threat. There's also run and gun platformers in Shoot Us Blood and Teeth, digital CCGs in Warpforge, and a VR adventure, Battle Sister. But the end of last year saw something else come along that'll make the franchise appeal to a whole new demographic, Rogue Trader. It's taken a long time to get a proper RPG in the 40k universe, but Owlcat's offering addresses that. Players gather a crew, command their own void ship, and travel around a perilous expanse, colonizing and spreading the Emperor's influence. The premise isn't too much to wrap your head around. You basically have a special license that says, I can do what I want, and plunge headfirst into a world of turmoil, rising chaos threats, and galactic intrigue. The franchise can be overwhelming when you try and get your head around it, but this zeroes in and focuses on one thing at a time. By concentrating on the little stories, would-be fans can start building their own knowledge of the universe. Sure, if you do want more, there's a load of excess lore you can soak up, but you don't need to. You can play this just as you would any other RPG, and by proxy you'll build up an impressive understanding of the 40k universe without ever really trying. Furthermore, the Rogue Trader journey will continue well into 2024 with new DLC, so if you get stuck in now, there'll be a whole wave of content heading your way. Probably more than enough to tide you over until the year's other big offering, Space Marine 2. Now this is going to be a big one. All the reading and pondering and thoughtfulness of Rogue Trader is replaced by non-stop violence. If you want to learn by doing, and by doing, I mean tearing everything to shreds and unloading magazines into ravenous Xenos, this is your academy. Like Bolt Gun, it puts the series' flagship characters, the Space Marines, front and center, genetically, cybernetically, and all other types of netically enhanced super soldiers, whose prime directive is to kill anything that threatens the Imperium of man's order in the galaxy. Which is pretty much everything. Yeah. You're a big deal. And your purpose is to cut down any tyrannid in your path. Obviously there will be things connecting the carnage, threads of lore and reason, and you can take them in as you want. It'll be like watching a Marvel blockbuster to get your first foray into the comics. But even with this massive game on the horizon, there's still more. Off in the distance is Speed Freaks, the 40k answer to Mario Kart. Yes, Really? There's even a Power Wash Simulator collaboration in the works. But as well as those, and Space Marines 2 and Rogue Trader, that only amounts to half of the games in development. According to Games Workshop's official report last year, there's 4 others in the works. So if you get into it now, there's no worry about being hit with any sort of drought. But let's say you picked up one of these aforementioned games. You've deepened your knowledge and understanding, and now you want newer and flashier offerings. Now with full speed ahead in your Warhammer journey, news is starting to trickle in about something deeply exciting. The 40k live action TV show. I'm sure you've heard the news floating around. Amazon and Games Workshop are making a Warhammer series. The main man spearheading the whole thing is one you know all too well, Mr. Henry Cavill, the man who just a few years ago said that his dream role would be to act in a 40k adaptation if it were to ever happen. Well, now it is. And he is calling the shots. And I hear the worries. Some adaptations haven't been great at preserving the original source material. The result is something trying to hit all audiences, but pleasing no one. But I'm not too worried. For one, Cavill's experience with The Witcher will still be fresh in the memory. One of the main reasons he left was because the showrunners were disrespecting an IP that he dearly loved. I dare say he likes 40k even more. He grew up with it after all. He wouldn't stand for people changing something that he adores. And again, he's an executive producer. He has a license to do what he wants. He's literally the Rogue Trader of TV production. The other reason is Games Workshop. They're very, and I mean very, protective of their IP. They spent decades crafting this conflicting, thought-provoking world. Everything's a certain way for a reason, and I just don't see them unraveling all that for the sake of a TV show. The owners are negotiating the series' creative direction directly with Amazon, and I don't see Games Workshop giving up too much ground. That's good for us, because we get something true to the source. But on the downside, it means we'll probably be waiting quite a while for this series to materialize. If you were on the fence and waiting for the show to come out, you'll probably be waiting a couple of years at least. Best get started on the games in the meantime, I suppose. So there's a lot of entry points that may interest you. But before I wrap this up, I want to circle back to the start, the why. I talked about how 40k doesn't take itself too seriously, and a lot of the premise and delivery is tongue-in-cheek. But there's another layer, something that other IPs don't really have, which sets this apart from other heavy hitters. Let's look at Star Wars. They're family-friendly films. You root for the Jedi, you boo the Sith. It's an allegory for the struggle for freedom and being true to yourself. You want the good guys to win. You want to live this experience. Similar to Star Trek, the whole premise is built around the allure of exploration and camaraderie. Fans imagine themselves brushing shoulders with Jean-Luc Picard or James Kirk, discovering frontiers unknown. Warhammer fans do not have this. They do not want to live in the 40k universe. You might think, but what about the good fight for mankind? Well, that's the thing. Humanity aren't the good guys. They're terrible. They sacrifice thousands of lives a day to keep one emperor from going 6 feet under. They enslave entire star systems, turn dissenters into soulless husks, and any sense of free thought is pretty much a death sentence. So if they aren't the good guys, who are? Well, the Eldar have some good points, but then again, they see every other living species as beneath them and wouldn't bat an eyelid at dooming millions to save one of their own. The Tau have a strong philosophy all about the greater good. The greater good. Shut it! Which is usual protagonist stuff, but if you disagree with their philosophy, they will destroy you. Looks like we're out of luck then. But also, the quote-unquote bad guys all live in a morally grey area. The Necrons will wipe out all life in the galaxy given the chance. But their primary purpose is to stop the spread of chaos. Chaos is a blight on the galaxy, but there are more than a few people that have turned to the dark gods in the interest of saving innocence. Not to mention the very traits of these gods are just aspects of humanity. Ambition, lust, violence. The Orcs will turn swathes of the galaxy into a conflict-ridden hellhole, but that's because that's their idea of fun. They are biologically programmed to want to fight, because it's their idea of a good time. You know, like football fans.
And that was his idea of a good day out.
Similar with Tyranids. This hive mind will consume the galaxy given the chance, but it's just in their DNA. They're simply surviving, in the same way a plague of locusts will strip a forest bare. Now, is that evil, or just nature? That's the thing that makes this IP so interesting. There are no good guys. You aren't supposed to root for one side over the other. You'll probably have a vested interest in the humans, because, well, you know, species and all that. But you aren't supposed to agree with their motives or actions. You're supposed to be taken aback by the absurdity of it all and question all the awful things that are happening. No heroes, no villains, just a galaxy of moral greyness, providing the stage for some of the most unique storytelling around. Well, I say all that. There's also the Dark Eldar. Now they are the bad guys. I'm not even going to begin to make the argument otherwise. There's reasons aplenty to take steps into the world of 40k, and plenty of ways to do it. Once you've got your feet wet, there's so many options. The 2011 Space Marine, Battlefleet Gothic Armada, and Mechanicus, probably the best squad-based tactics game around. Necromunda Hired Gun, Battle Sector, and Dawn of War 1 and 2. And that's just scratching the surface. There's dozens more, not to mention the actual Warhammer itself. The miniatures might appeal to you, but even if they don't, it doesn't matter. The important thing is to make it your own personal journey. There's more than a few ways to be overwhelmed, but just take it one step at a time. Go at your own pace and play the stuff you want to play, not what you feel you should. Honestly, it is a worthwhile journey. If you try a game or two, don't like it, oh well. They aren't going to be the only games you've ever played that aren't right for you. But if they hit the spot, you're just taking a step into a universe that has a hell of a lot to offer.